And with that, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to the Light 'em Up Lounge. Welcome to another inspiring live show with a very, very special guest joining us from Long Island, joining us from his art studio, from his workshop. To begin things with, I'm very, very honored and delighted. It's a privilege to welcome Robert Glick from Art de Fumar with us here tonight, joining us at the Light 'em Up Lounge. And I want to welcome everybody joining us here via Zoom in our Light 'em Up Lounge, but also I want to welcome everybody joining us over on Facebook for the live stream. If you have any questions, as always, please make yourselves heard. Put your questions underneath the stream into the comments, and I'll be very, very happy to forward them to Robert here at the lounge. So without further ado, Robert Glick, welcome to Light 'em Up.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Robert, we have the privilege of going on a little tour with you to start the show today, and you are right in your workshop. You're right at the place where all the magic happens. So to begin with, you'll be joining us with a cigar in hand in just a few moments upstairs in your lounge. But to start with, please give us a little tour of where Art de Fumar is happening and where all your beautiful artwork is coming from before we continue our conversation with you sitting in the lounge and sharing us for a cigar.
Sure, thanks. So let me turn the camera perspective around as I do this. So this is my art studio. And what you see here is, used to be the basement of my house where my daughter had her little social area, but about 6-7 years ago, I changed it. And you can see here, I designed and built the whole studio myself by hand, but you literally have so many different cigar bands. And then I divide them. And if anybody's watching out there, the answer to your initial question is yes, I have bad case of OCD, if anybody wants to know. No, I'm kidding. But well, may not be kidding, actually. But so these are cigar bands categorized by their manufacturer. These are my extra supplies. These are the ones that I am currently working with. And then I have a system where I literally cut and use special cutters to design my artwork. And I'm currently working on some art for Fuente. And I have all sorts of pieces. Here are more retro and vintage, some Cuban cigar bands, and again, all different pieces. And I'll give you a little tour of the different things. So, for example, here's an Indian, and it has all my father's cigar bands. I'm working on probably many projects at once. I'm in the middle of making a backgammon table for somebody. So it's all cigar bands. And one of the things you'll notice about my artwork is from afar, you can't really tell what it is. So for example, Reinhard, you see the straight flush? Mm-hmm. But as we get closer to it, and this was at PCA in my booth in Vegas this summer, but as you get closer, you can see everything is cigar bands. And that's sort of the magic that I say. And you have all sorts of different pieces. I have instruments. And then Statue of Liberty, again, as you come close to it, though, it's all cigar bands. Flags. That's a full knight of armor. All sorts of furniture. For those locally here, I'm a Mets fan in New York. Again, all very detailed with cigar bands.
That's nice.
I'm making some shoes for Leo from Nova. My good friends Bill and Gus with El Pupo and Viva La Vida just asked me to make some ashtrays. And then I do some diorama. So here, for example, by my hand, you can see the perspective of the size. It's in a glass case, but it's a Fuente box and it's a bar scene. But if you take a look at all the details, everything has cigar bands, the pool table. So all different, here is a scene playing cards, and you see the bookshelves. All the books are cigar bands, and you can see they're playing cards, and apparently somebody's cheating because the dog underneath has the ace of spades. So I do all sorts of things, and in my studio one of my hobbies is to collect signed boxes, so I have boxes signed by all the owners. And then here's a pair of shoes that I did for my father, signed by Yanni. I'm doing some ashtrays for Oliva. I did a pair of shoes for Carlito. And then here's just my extra supply, Reinhard. They're just thousands and thousands and thousands of bands, all different things that I still want to work on. And then from a corporate side, I make a lot of ashtrays for customers and clients. Depending, I can put company logos, especially holiday time now. I have people want gifts with their company or for clients' logos. Things I'm going to be designing. And then that's a map of the United States, and every state has its own cigar band that starts with the letter of the state. So for example, if it was Oklahoma, or you have Oliva, New York N, Maine is Magna, Raquel Quesada's cigar. So every state that it begins with the letter is the letter of the beginning of the cigar name. And then I have my little, my little pictorial of all the different things I've done. From Pro Cigar last year, everybody signed. So that's basically a very quick tour. And with your permission, I'm going to go back upstairs because it's more important for me to finally light up and have a cigar. So I'm going to do that and turn the camera.
Yeah, whilst Robert is on the stairs, the connection is probably
and then
a
go
bit
to my
iffy.
cigar lounge.
But what a fantastic tour to kick
I
things
apologize,
off with.
But
well, you're back, Robert. It's all good, and
okay.
we're
So
very
now
glad
I've just
you
got
can
to
join us for a cigar.
I've got to change my camera perspective. For some reason, it's not allowing me to. But there we go. Now it's working, and now I can. Now I will feel much more relaxed when I can light up. So let me put the camera in. Let me sit down and let me charge up. And we
Wonderful.
will. And finally, now I get to light up. What am I going to light up? Okay.
Spoiled for choice, Usually that's the tricky part when you have to make your pick and choose which cigar you're going to be enjoying.
All yours, and I apologize. I had to pick from 3.
So what's it going to be for today? I'm curious.
I was just at the Big Smoke in Vegas this past month, and I figured, in honor of the first cigar that I ever tried, I would and they had a great cigar event because they opened up a new Casa de Monte Cristo in the Paris Hotel during the Big Smoke. I'm going with a Monte Cristo because my first cigar ever was the Monte Cristo #1 when I was about 25 years old.
That's actually a wonderful segue into one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, how did you actually start your cigar journey, and what are some of those earliest memories and some of these aromatic memories that you still have lingering in your nostrils and on your palate as to the first cigars you enjoyed?
It's funny that you asked the question because, I've been interviewed a lot over the last couple of years, and nobody's ever asked me the question in the way that you did because, if you were to go and let's say there's a barbecue and that you smell watermelon and it brings back memory to summer camp when you had the watermelon, or the hot dogs that question is phenomenal. And to answer your question has a lot of sentimental answers for me. My cigar journey began when I was probably about 6 years old. I would
Wow.
be in Florida, and my grandfather, Jack, may he rest in peace, and this is back in the 1970s, where smoking in your apartment wasn't an issue. And he was a big smoker of Macanudo cigars. And I always remember him lighting up, always having that cigar and the saliva off the end of his stick, and the smell of my grandfather Jack's cigar. And whenever I would go to Florida, I would always watch him open up the cabinet and see the boxes of Macanudos. I'm like, that's pretty impressive. And that's, cigars. And so the smell of the cigar to this day, whenever I smell a good cigar, reminds me of my grandfather smoking. And so that's where and you use the word aroma and the memory, started from my grandfather Jack.
That's beautiful. And the reason I asked the question specifically in that way is, you know, everything that I do nowadays is, and I only learned this along the way, is a reflection of where I come from. And my earliest childhood memories evolve around the family table. I come from a very simple and humble background. We never had much, but we had the family table. And my grandparents installed so many important values in me, and still to this very day I carry all these memories through the aromas and the taste sensations that mean so much to me.
Absolutely.
One of the most meaningful ones is a very simple and humble piece of potato bread, and there was always that luscious sweet yeasty scent in the hallway. And whenever I came home, when I smelled that, I immediately felt at home. I felt at ease and felt at peace. And that's what truly fascinates me about the wine and spirits industry, where I come from originally, and then later on the cigar industry, where you can learn so much about history and geography and culture and and mother nature, but you have something that is so real and tangible, something that you can
And it
smell and
brings it
taste
back.
and link.
And it brings it back 100%, because there was no doubt that my grandfather, there's no doubt, was my inspiration, if you will, to thinking about smoking cigars. I didn't start actually smoking until I was 25 years old. I'm actually an attorney, and I have a practice here in New York. I have a partner. We have about 18 lawyers. And one day, I was at a street fair, and I smoked a cigar. And then coincidentally, I loved it. And the very next day, it was around the holiday time, there was a company party for a law firm, and they were handing out Monte Cristos. So truly, the first real cigar that I enjoyed was the Monte Cristo #1, and I was hooked ever since 25 years old. And I don't drink alcohol. I've never drank alcohol, for no reason. I have no issues. People ask me. I just never liked the taste of alcohol. So I made a decision that instead of drinking alcohol and not having it, I took all the money that I probably saved over the years, and I built myself this cigar room. So, but it's
I think that's a fair trade-off.
I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it.
Now, the law firm, one thing, your early childhood memories, even of cigars, another thing. And here comes Art de Fumar and the incredible artwork that you put out. How does that all come together? Like, how does a lawyer end up not only enjoying cigars, but taking the beautiful artwork, those beautiful rings, and turn them into something absolutely unique and truly stunning? And I'm so glad that we could experience some of your work behind the scenes with the little tour that you presented us with. But how come?
I'm not sure there's a direct answer to the question, because I think the analogy that I'm going to give you about my artwork is actually a metaphor for how it all happened. So let me explain. As a little boy, I loved puzzles. I was enamored with puzzles. I would fight myself to find the damn pieces and start that puzzle on the edges. And eventually, and you know, when you get that piece and you're looking for a piece and it doesn't necessarily fit, you think, I think it fits, but I'm not sure if it fits. It looks like it fits. But when you put the piece in and it snaps and it molds and you know the piece fits and you've got the piece, you know that feeling that it's done and it's connected? That's how my artwork started. I come from a relatively artistic family, although not formal artists. Both my mother and my father are definitely artistic. My father was a graphic artist, more in the print industry growing up. And my mother, to this day, they're both alive, thank God. My father is 85. He'll be 86 in March, and my mother is going to be 84 next month in January.
Bravo.
And they instilled art. My mother, to this day, still draws. I have her drawings up in my office. So I think the artistic side of my family in the gene, to a certain extent, which I never knew ever, ever that I had, if I even think I have. But I always loved the puzzles. And then you're asking me, and here's the metaphor, how it all just came into place, my artwork. And how did that happen? It literally started in this room. I'm not going to give you a tour of my cigar lounge, but I have about 3 humidors. I probably have around 2,000 cigars, because it's also a hobby, as you know, like wine. I'll never smoke them all. In fact, since I began it and I became a little bit more recognized in the cigar industry, I have if somebody in the industry, let's say Carlito gave me a cigar, or Hochi from, La Galera or Raquel, if they've given me a cigar when I've met with them, I have every original cigar. Like, you sent me a cigar. I will now keep that and not smoke it as a collection. And I have a whole area in here. But I was sitting in this room, and this is about 6 or 7 years ago. And here's where it all started. This was just the little tin that I put my cigar bands in. And after a while, the bin would fill up, and I'd put it in the tub, and I'd put it in a box. They would grow and grow. And I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with them? So one day, I saw this wood coaster that I put my, if I have a soda or somebody's drinking, I give them coasters. And I actually have it here, so let me grab it. So it was just a traditional, coaster. And I said, okay, I've got to do something with my cigar bands. So I then said, okay, I'll design the coaster. Now, I'm assuming a lot of your viewers, and you've seen artwork with cigar bands before. It's nothing new. But the difference that I feel that I bring to the art that I haven't seen, and I'm not sure, I'm hoping that I'd ever see it, but a lot of cigar bands, as you know, Reinhard, they have straight lines to them. So a cigar band, here, let's just take, I got to take a look. One mother, I apologize. Let's just see. You could have a secondary band. They're straight lines.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do is, if you look at my artwork when I showed you, when I gave you the tour, I cut out. There are no straight edges. I'm assuming you've seen a lot of famous people who do the pictures of the Jack Nicholsons with these cigar bands and different things. You notice there's a lot of straight lines, and they make it look. I literally cut every single band very intricately to the pattern that I may want to make it fit. And eventually, there became the coaster. And if you notice, there are no straight lines. And I've taught myself a process to sort of camouflage through designing the edges. And I could take I could take a Camacho band, and I can cut that one band into 20 different little pieces, depending on what I want, and little teeny, and I use them in my design process. And eventually, I taught myself this technique through time to then make my own puzzle. I'm the puzzle maker. I'm no longer the puzzle placer. So I consider what I do is I'm designing puzzles, but I'm making them. But I say this all the time. I don't decide, and this is true, I don't decide where the bands go. The bands decide where they go. And if once it's done, it's like the opposite of a puzzle in a way. I'm not looking to connect something that matches. I'm going to create the connection through my process. So over time, I designed this, and then I taught myself through my own, video education, if you will, with nowadays with technology. I taught myself and I learned how to resin properly with leveling, with heat. And so now I do processes where I resin. So you can, if I do ashtrays, and so for example, this is a lighter that I design, and a lot of people, ask for them. And I resin it by hand because the oils on your hand won't ruin the bands. I learned that through the hard way when it did ruin it. And I taught myself a process, so I resin, and it's fully functional. And even the ashtrays have heat resistance where there's no issues with the resin. They're absolutely fine to put your ash, and I've tested them. So in a long-winded way, that's sort of how all of this came together.
I love it, and there's so many different aspects of your answer that we need to dive into and we need to explore further. The one that struck me first and the most is how you mentioned that it's the rings speaking to you now and telling you where they need to go in order to form that. I'm curious, how has your creative and artistic process evolved and changed over the years? Where in the beginning you're probably more difficult to find the right word, but
I think you're looking for, if I may, rudimentary.
Yes, and also probably more deliberate in when you're trying and you're trying hard to make something work, whereas now it's much more fluent, and the art reveals itself to you.
I'll give you
facilitator.
I think the answer to your question, and I've always had this philosophy with almost anything you do in life. Before a lot of technology, and even now, we have factory lines. We have ways that factories put things together. When you have a process, and let's say you have an assembly line, you learn how to better your assembly line. You learn how to better have tools. You learn how to do things better. There's nothing different about my art design. Over time, when I would design, I said, you know what? This is taking too long. I need to figure out a way. So instead of cutting each band in a circle, I went online, and I bought there's nothing you can't find on eBay, Reinhard, nothing, or Amazon. I went out and got paper cutters that cut perfect circles for me, all different sizes and different dimensions. I no longer have to cut by hand, but yes, I have to sit there when I'm on vacation, and it's my therapy. I love it. There's nothing different between that and somebody doing crochet or somebody reading a book. This is what I do when I'm on vacation. I get up in the morning, I'll sit at the pool I'll be on a plane, whatever it is. So I have a process, and I've taught myself just how to do it better. And then I'm always trying to think out of the box. What can I do that's never been done, or that's going to say, wow? And there are people that have given me comments, and ideas. And I'm always working on 5 or 6 projects at once. If I showed you, and I'm not going back to my studio, but I'll have a lot of my artwork. You didn't even realize that's halfway done because as I'm doing artwork, I'm literally thinking at the same time about what I got to do with other things. So as I'm gluing, I can be thinking about a whole different project. So it's really just self-taught, self-analyzed. And like I said, it's literally therapy for me. And my wife will tell you I need a lot of it. So
That's another incredible aspect that I truly love, the therapeutic element of it, where it's something that you do for yourself in order to find peace and solace from everyday life. And I mean, now your artwork is globally recognized. You were just awarded the Cigar Trophy Award by Cigar Journal 2023 for your outstanding art. So again, I take my hat off and
thank you.
congratulations for that.
Thank you.
I had the privilege of lighting my Marvel cigars with your lighters, the ones that you showed a couple of weeks ago in Oman. So halfway around the world,
Oh,
I
I didn't even
discovered
realize
your art
that. You were with at Ash.
with Ashish.
Oh
Absolutely.
my,
At
I didn't even know that. He was my first true foreign customer.
Oh,
That is
lovely.
so funny.
Ashish is a very good friend of mine. Besides he's a partner, and working with us in Oman. But we sat at the Chetty in Muscat, and I looked at the lighters and I said, "Well, this smells familiar." And it was just a funny coincidence. But how beautiful that halfway across the world, I rediscovered your art. But back to my point, there's an element in your creative process that is very much finding peace for yourself in what you do. But then there's the recipients, and as well, where somebody's enjoying your art halfway across the planet, and everybody has a different perception about how they enjoy your art, how they interpret your art. And the question I asked before can also very well be translated into this one. How much of that is deliberate? Um, do you have the end consumer in mind when you create art, or is it truly a hedonistic and, in the most positive sense, egoistic approach to creating?
that's it's a great question, and I can answer it for hours and hours in different aspects. But to be brief about it, there are multiple answers for that question. But I make art for me. This is not about money for me. Okay, and I don't mean that in a bravado way. Obviously, there's a financial aspect of it, but my law practice is what's going to have me someday retire, not my artwork. Well, that maybe I'll change that. But it started out that I made all these art pieces for me. I had so much art around this room and downstairs that I eventually said, you know what? I got to start selling it because everybody keeps on saying. So there was a point that I started Instagram, and somebody reached out to me asking me how much it was for a piece of art. And I'm not kidding you. They made me an offer, and I said, I can't sell it. It's like my child. I can't sell it. I can't sell it. I can't bear leaving it because I love it. And as people loved it more, I see all the artwork that's in this house that's silly. I started to say it's time to let go. Let the birds go out and get out of their windows and be with people that enjoy it. So it was a psychological thing, and I'm not being sarcastic. It was very difficult for me to let go of my artwork. I didn't care how much money they want, you know. So I started selling pieces, but I would only want to sell the pieces that I made for me. Then people would say to me, can you make me this with that? So then it became a point that I would start to design and get commissioned. And I would have no issues doing that. But I will tell you, I don't enjoy the pressure of having to produce for someone else's expectations. But I'm proud to tell you that there hasn't been a customer or somebody who's commissioned that has not said anything but wow. So I don't like that pressure. And I'll give you a perfect example. Oman, he asked me to design lighters for his lounge. And he wanted certain ways with certain things, as you know, when you saw there. And I did it, but I was asked to do it versus me making the decisions about things. And it took me some time, but I enjoy the challenge now. And I'll give you another example. When I was at PCA, I was with somebody in the cigar industry, and we were at 8 Lounge at the Resorts World. And he showed Giuseppe, the owner of 8, my artwork online. And he showed him what I showed you downstairs, the straight flush. And Giuseppe said, well, my friend said to him, he could make you something like that. And Giuseppe says, can you make me 4 8s for the 8 Lounge? And I said, of course. He picked a spot. We talked about it for about 30 seconds, and he said, done. He asked me my price. We came to an agreement, and I'm proud to say that last month when I was at Big Smoke, if people are on my Instagram, you could see, there was the unveiling, and the 4 8s were put up during the Big Smoke. And anybody who goes to Vegas, go to Resorts World selfishly. As you go outside, the piece is on the wall by the door, and it's called 4 8s, one of a kind. And next to each piece of art that Giuseppe has is a placard with the QR code that goes to all the artists' website. So for me, it's an honor to know that my artwork is now in this wonderful lounge in Las Vegas. So every time I go, and when I was there, Carlito came, we took pictures with Carlito, and all the people, the well-known people in the cigar industry, Fred from Oliva, Laura, so many different people. It's such an honor that I consider myself to be part of their industry, not my industry, but to know that they love the art. And now I'm doing things with Carlito and the Fuente Foundation. Anything that I do with artwork with Fuente, a percentage goes to the CFCF, which is very important to me. Very, very important. And I promised Carlito, and we have an agreement that my artwork, a percentage will always go to his charity. And I believe in giving back. And, so my cigar art, a lot of it is then the proceeds will go to charity as well. So
That's beautiful.
It's been a wonderful, wonderful 5 or 6 years so far.
When you design pieces of art for other people based on the specific request that they have, in response, do you tell them, in order to kind of go around what you were just describing, do you tell them, look, this is an assignment, but I have to put my own heart and soul into this, so it'll always have a very unique Robert Glick touch to it, whether you like that or not. And you will still try to stick to the assignment, but that there's always that element of your own expression, right?
Depending on the piece of art, Reinhard, the answer is yes. And it's funny that you asked that question as well, because if I'm going to design, for example, I just recently, over the last year or so, and people on Instagram have seen, and there's been a lot of orders, I've been designing men's and women's shoes, as I showed you downstairs. And somebody say, can you design this for me? And they want to use, let's just Opus X red. Now, a lot of my pieces, if I'm going to do a piece of art that has basically one band, okay, I have to create a pattern, just like you saw with my father's or the Fuente Opus X Blue. And I have what I call palette tiles, pattern tiles, that I literally take a tile and I'll work for hours till I get the pattern that I want right. And then I will create the pattern. So if somebody says, I want a pair of X shoes, usually they'll say to me, you design it, you're the artist. But the vision that I had was using Opus, using Padron. I can create the pattern, but they'll always, virtually always say to me, you're the artist, literally. That's why I came to you. So yeah, there's a path, but I paint the picture.
Have you ever had materials where you say like that won't work? Or is your technique applicable to pretty much any piece of art that people could request from you?
So far, there's only been one item that I cannot do, and I'm going to challenge myself to eventually try and do it. Number one, if glue sticks on something, then I can do it. If people have seen, I've made trumpets. I made a trumpet for Carlito for La Gran Fumata, and I made one for Arturo Sandoval. So I can make anything. However, I tried to do a football. And because of the leather, but the pimples on a football, the bands were not adhering. So basically, I can almost do anything. My father taught me as a little boy, and to this day, I've taught my daughter. And I'm a firm believer of it. And my daughter knows, my daughter Alicia knows. If you put your mind to something, and this isn't just about art, this is about life. If you put your mind to something, you can do anything that can be accomplished. And I truly believe that. So every time I design, to this day, and it still happens, when I start a project, I always say when I'm looking at it, nah, this is not going to work. It's not going to work. And I've been training myself to say, you know what? When it comes together and it's complete, it's going to work. And it works every single time. And I still say it's not going to work. You have to wait until every piece of that puzzle is connected. And when it's all together, it works and everything works out. So I could do almost anything. And I have some. Okay.
I was just curious, without giving away any trade secrets or your secret sauce, but can you just lay out the basic principles of how you put together those pieces? So obviously you mentioned gluing the cigar bands or the cutouts of the bands to the base material of your choice. And then you have the resin that goes on top of it to cover it all, correct? Are there
Yeah.
any other intricacies or steps along the process that you can share with us?
Depending on the piece of art that I'm going to design, there are various adhesives or combinations of the adhesives. Sometimes I'll use a spray glue. Sometimes I'll use a rubber glue. It all depends on what I need to have done. And it also depends on the type of finish I want to have. You know, for example, I could do this lighter and I could have it professionally resined so it looks like glass on the outside. But the people that want this, even though I put resin on it, you can still feel the texture of the bands. And that's what you want. I don't want just a piece of glass that looks like it was made in a factory, because you can go out and you can go buy it at a PCA event or order it. You know what I'm saying? I want to have that textured feeling so you can feel the bands. So you could still feel the different textures of these bands when you touch it. So depending on the piece, I will use various finishes. You know, you use the word trade secrets. I don't mind, you know, I don't have enough time in this show to tell people how I do it, but it's something, and I truly believe this, not from an egocentric way. Nobody will be ever able to copy my art or do what I do because, yes, I can cut the pieces, right? And I could cut the circles, and I can cut the CAO diamonds, and I could cut the circles out of Fuente, or I can cut the circles out of Padron. But this is what puts them together. And I don't, it's like, it's subjective. So that's how people do their art. It's through their heart, through their eyes. So it's not, I don't think, maybe I'm wrong. Somebody can have their own take on what I do, the way I do it. But I don't think that people will be able to do what I do because I couldn't do what they do. That gentleman that did the famous Jack Nicholson art, I could never create art that looks like a human being with cigar. That's not my mind. And that's not the type of art that I design. That's a different artist. So it's just, it's what's within my soul, if you will.
Mm. Speaking of that particular example, when you start to work on a new project, how much of that is work in progress where you have to see how things fit whilst you're going? And as a different proposition to that, how much is a vision that you have in mind right from the get-go, and then it's just working towards fulfilling and accomplishing that puzzle you already have in mind?
The vision process is on the piece of art. So, for example, I'll be doing some work for Bill and Gus, the owners of El Pupo and Viva la Vida. No cheap plug, fantastic stick. I was just with him in Vegas. And I've been working, you may have seen it downstairs, or people on my Instagram may have seen, I've been doing some masks. Viva la Vida, their marketing, their branding is a Joker mask, is a Venetian mask. That's their. So we decided, I say we, I envisioned getting a mask, which I'm ordering for them, and it will have all and only Viva la Vida on that mask in contrasting ways and colors. That's the vision part of it. The other part, the design, in the beginning, until I taught myself the process, I would think about how am I going to do this. Now I know, now it just happens. I, you know, I asked permission before. I've been doing a lot of interviews lately, and I'll be going to Pro Cigar in February. And I asked Pro Cigar a couple of weeks back if I'm allowed to share certain things because I'm working with them, proprietary, but I've been given permission. And you ask about the vision, so I'm sharing this with you. Anybody out there who's watching or listening, and if you're going to either go to Pro Cigar or you know somebody who's going to Pro Cigar, I am as humbled as can be to let you know that I'm designing the box for the White Knight. And if anybody, I don't know, I don't want to tell you what it is right now, but to have been asked to design that box is one of the highlights of my artistry. And I actually designed the box, the artwork. I worked with their graphic artists. I actually did it on the road. I was honored, as you know, to go to Germany this summer for Intertabac, where I got the award. And I decided, as I told you, I do this as therapy, literally in the car where my wife drove, in the hotels, in Switzerland, getting up at 5 in the morning in the reception or the registration areas of the hotels. I designed purposely because I wanted to be in that mindset of being in the industry, knowing I was going. And I designed the entire artwork while I was on the road. It's finished. In fact, I spoke with the printer this morning. We're waiting on the final retouches. And I can't wait. So the vision for that came from Pro Cigar, because last year was the first time I ever heard of Pro Cigar, when Tony Gomez introduced me to the people at Pro Cigar. And it was a little late to design a box, but they asked me if I would design something for the gala night. And I did a humidor. And I'm proud to say that the humidor raised $18,000 during the auction. And it's things like that. It's not about the money. It's what you said before. People just really love the art. I would rather sit and take your compliments on a chair watching in a gallery. People love my art than taking your money. It's not about the money to me. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to take your money. Okay. But it's not about that at all. I'd much rather have the compliments than the cash, truthfully.
On a more philosophical level, and I bring up this analogy purposefully because I always question myself that when it comes to the humble cigar, how much in the process do you think is craft, and how much do you think is art in the purest sense?
Well, my answer has changed over the last 5 or 6 years. If it was 5 or 6 years ago, I would have said it's 90% in the craft, in the designing. It's the opposite. I learned, it took me 5 or 6 years, that the art is here. And I'm not being dramatic. I didn't know. And the only reason I know it is because of the audience out there telling me. I didn't know. And it's not a matter of insecurity. I didn't know that there was such an appreciation. I just started out in this room making a coaster. And when people would say to me, oh, I have to have that, and I really want that, can you make me that? That's when I realized that there's really an audience out there, and that people really, truly admire the artwork that I do. So it's really, to me, it's all almost 90%, because now I know how to do the craft, if you will. You know, it's like saying, does somebody know how to paint? They know how to blend colors. I know how to blend bands, but how do you make it happen on a canvas? So I think it's really philosophically, it's instinctual. It literally, to me, is something in my genes that I'm able to just create it and make it happen.
Do you think of cigars in the same way now? And tobaccos, the blending aspect, the creation of something beautiful like this?
You know, it's funny. It's funny. I didn't realize that when I was in Germany that I have to, not have to, but you were expected to give an acceptance speech. Everybody else who's been to this before knew. I had no idea. I'm watching the event. They're taking out pieces of paper. They're saying things. I had no idea that I even had to say anything. So I had to speak on the cuff because I was not prepared. And I think what I said extemporaneously will answer your question, because you asked about the blending. I think about my artwork and cigars. For me to be welcomed into this industry, the one thing I've learned about cigars and blending, and this is getting to the heart of your question and my answer. If there's anything I've learned about the cigar industry, and maybe it's through Carlito through Hochi Blanco, through George Padron. It's about family. It's about tradition. It's about family. So these blends are familial. They're blended with love. They stand the test of time. And as I said when I gave my acceptance speech, I thank you for allowing me into your industry where I've blended. I'm not a cigar maker, I'm not a manufacturer, but it's, so yeah, I think about how you blend. It's sort of how I make my artwork. It's different, but they both create an experience. So yeah, it definitely is.
Another thing that I'm curious about, and it just came to mind whilst you're speaking. Um, I love how you described the the painter mixing the colors on the palette and putting them to the canvas in order to create this art. And for you, the cigar ring is the color that you apply to the canvas to create your art. When you look at the industry now, when you look at different designs, the artwork on the rings, has your perception and your opinion about the industry and the way bands in particular or the packaging is designed, has that changed over time
Um,
through the lens of it being colors for you now that you apply to your own art?
well, I'm I'm an observer. It's unilateral, meaning I take it in. You use the phrase about the paint. One of the things I didn't show you downstairs is that if I'm doing a piece of art, like I showed you the Statue of Liberty, there's a whole portion that is red, a blue, a white. I have buckets downstairs, plastic shoe buckets. And I literally spend hours and hours and hours separating bands by different categories. And I put my paint buckets. I have my bucket of red. I have my red, orange, yellow, green, blue. I have 20 different buckets of just those color bands. So I use those paint buckets as my paint. So when I'm doing an American flag, you ask me about the assembly line. I don't have to worry and go and I have everything ready. Now it's taken me time, but I now more easily can say, here's my red line for the American flag. I can use Camacho. I can use my Monte Cristo white label, the white series for whatever I'm going to do. So I use that as my paint. And I'm always admiring bands. In fact, I go online all the time to boutique cigar manufacturers. And if I like your band, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to say, I love your bands. Would it be possible that I could get some to add to my inventory? And as a thank you, I'll promote it on my Instagram with my followers. And by the way, anybody listening, Art de Fumar, my Instagram, cheap plug, ARTDEFUMAR, or you reach out to me. I would love to get your bands. You could throw a couple of cigars on the bands if they want as well. But I love to get, and I can't tell you, Reinhard, how many people, and I just started doing this about 6-7 weeks ago, and I can't tell you how many people. I have if I were to show you to the left, my dining room table, okay, has about 200 cigars and a couple thousand bands that people have been sending me. And it's not about, oh, I want your cigars. I enjoy it. It's a hobby. I want to see and introduce those boutique cigar bands to the industry. Because someday when Viva La Vida and El Pupo are no longer the boutique cigar, but they're winning the Inter-Tobacco Awards or whatever it is, I want to know that I was sort of along for that ride. And so I'm always looking for really interesting, different artwork. One of the things I'm going to be doing is, because I have gotten a lot of these bands lately, is I'm going to be doing a piece of art that is going to be just boutique. You're not going to see Fuente. You're not going to see Padron. Not that I don't want to, but I want to share with the world others' art and do a piece or pieces and share that on my Instagram for my followers and for people who like the art, and to let the world know that there are so many beautiful, these things are pieces of art. You take a look, whether it's honestly, and people ask me, what's your favorite band? I don't have a favorite band per se, but my father's cigars, some of the Fuente bands are absolutely magnificent pieces of art. You take a look at Hochi Blanco's bands, which are actually art, if people look at them. And I know the stories. I've had many conversations with Hochi in his factory about his bands. A lot of the bands, not a lot, almost all the bands have some very, very direct and hidden meanings to the owners that you and I would never know about. So it's art, and I'm always looking to get bands from other people and introduce them to others as well.
Can you look at the cigar ring and the respective cigar as two completely separate entities based on your approach and how you work? And the reason I'm asking this is, let's take a cigar that you love, for example, and on the opposite end of the spectrum, a cigar that's probably not suiting your taste profile necessarily. Would you still work with that ring because you purely consider it a piece, like a color, or is your perception, your appreciation, and your love for the cigar behind the ring part of the way you apply it to your artwork?
I'm going to give you the lawyer answer in me. Okay, this is the attorney answer. During jury selection, we ask the jury, can they be impartial? No matter what you think, can you be a fair juror and not be persuaded by something that's out there? So I think you know where my answer is going. I can get a cigar band this week from a cigar boutique company from DR or from Nicaragua or from whatever. And it happened this week. I'll always, as a thank you, promote, and I'll do a little story or reel. But there was a cigar, I'm not going to mention names, that had a gorgeous band. The cigar was not like the band. Let me put it to that way. But as the juror, my job, if you say a job, I'm about the art. I don't care what your cigar tastes like. So I'm more about, for me, about the art. Because listen, I'm sure like you, behind closed doors, you're going to go sometimes to your go-to stick that you like, because that's what you love. We're all human beings. Our palates are different. I may go to certain cigars, but I don't care if I don't like the cigar. If I love the band and the artwork, that's for me what it's about.
Fair point. Speaking of lawyers, we have our lawyer in residence here, Macy, who has a question for you. Macy, good to see you. Welcome back.
Have I unmuted myself, or are we at another Jose Blanco moment?
Oh,
You're all good.
no Jose Blanco moment for right now, although he did just reach out to me.
Okay, I'm unmuted. That's good. Hopefully, you may want to mute me before. Well, first of all, I like the Joe Namath jersey behind you. I'm an Ole Miss guy, but you know, Alabama boy did all right. His autobiography, my mom had that last Thanksgiving, and his, what was it, touchdowns was his club. He had quite the story about hitting on a go-go dancer he was warned about, and later found out she had an Adam's apple. So quite a good book if you've never read it. Just as a, anyway, you talked about jury selection, Voy Dyer. So I'm a litigator. Is that, you a litigator? What do you do in your law practice?
I'm a litigator. I'm a litigator as well. Trial practice.
That's why you got that essence.
I was in court this morning.
How'd it go? You criminal, civil? What? Tell me a little about you. I'm curious about your practice.
I started out as a criminal defense attorney, as a public defender in 1983, 89, excuse me. And I decided that I wanted to have an extra zero or two in my paycheck as a public defender. So I went into civil law, and then over time I began a civil trial practice. And I have a partner, and I have some junior partners, and so we have 18 lawyers. But we're a litigation firm in New York.
You primarily plaintiff or defense side?
It started out 98% defense for insurance. I'm New York counsel for all the rental car companies. But slowly over time, now I would say instead of 98% defense, we're about 70% defense and 30% plaintiffs.
Well, that just means, rental car, that you haven't seen a cigar ban you don't like, you haven't seen an arbitration clause you don't like. But I
don't believe in arbitration.
Side, so
I like mediation versus arbitration.
There you go. You just need to get the defendants to bring a checkbook. They seem to forget it to mediate. It helps it settle, if they bring a little money. But okay,
well, now we know what. Now with that comment, now we know what type of practice you have.
Well, in theory, hopefully a profitable one, but we'll see. Hope springs eternal. Right. Hardest part's getting these judges to rule, but don't even pray for me next week in West Palm. I got the fight of all fights. I have to send you a link on that.
I'll be in West Palm next week. I'll be in West Palm next week.
What are you doing? Let's go get a cigar, smoke in or something. I think my hearing's on the 7th, Thursday.
I'll be there. I'll be there next week, next Thursday night through the weekend. And I usually go to strikes in the Boca area.
Well, you're gonna have to show. Okay, you didn't know that. I'm gonna look you up and follow up.
You got it.
For an email. Okay,
you got it.
I'll Reinhard, give me this man's email, please. Or Arte Fumar, I can find you. Okay, series. Okay, trying to stay on point. Okay, I am you've got me thinking. I am a stamp collector, and in particular, I've got a collection of stamps that are tobacco stamps. Do you have any idea? Is that something you could work with? Because I'm actually working with my wife.
Let me stop you. Let me stop you. I don't know if you saw in the beginning, and I didn't focus on it. The one project that I've done in my life that has not cigar bans is downstairs in my studio, and we may have passed it. I have a U.S. post box that is designed in only stamps, and it's a full-blown mailbox, fully done. Offline, we can get together and I'll give you a tour of it. But I've done it, and it's all stamps.
Well, next week in Palm or Boca, Palm Beach County. Okay. Maybe I can show you some photos because maybe I can commission you. It's funny you talk about this. My wife is a puzzler, and she actually had a side business before it started hurting her hands and all that. Origami art, kind of similar. And she would do the component parts and then make them in pieces and then kind of put, like you're talking about, your buckets. So it's very similar to hear about your process. It reminded me of her back in the origami days. I also like a lot of memories being jogged here. When you showed your bucket, the little canister, how this all started. I have a different bucket, a ceramic canister, but I don't know, 5-10 years ago, probably closer to 10 now, I said, I'm going to start keeping my bands. I wish I started when I was 15. Sorry, FDA. I mean, 18 minus 3. I wish I had saved some of the old bands, but, a lot of dorm moves and crazy, and police after me. A lot of crazy things happened, lost some things. But do you think I could commission, or is that something you would do? I'm interested in having something made of these particular bands. I keep one of each. I mean, I don't keep repeats, but if there's something new, I try to keep, or if the cigar's terrible, I may throw the band out.
To answer your question, people commission me all the time and send me their personal cigar bands because it has even more meaning to them that I create a piece that is just their bands. And I will never use any of my bands that I have, and I have hundreds of thousands. So absolutely, I'd be more than happy to talk with you. Again, if you have Instagram, then it's, Art Day Fumar. You could DM me, or from Reinhard, you can get my contact information. Absolutely, I can certainly work with you and design anything that you would want with your cigar bands. Sure.
Thank you for your time. Best wishes, and good luck in court.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll talk soon.
Robert, we'll bring in Dejan. He's freezing his ass off on his balcony in Vienna, so we'll bring some warmth to his heart here. Good to have you, brother.
Hi, thanks, Reinhard. Hi, Robert.
Hello, Dejan.
I would just like to say, I understand what you were saying about how it affects you and so on, because I have a similar hobby. I do similar thing with the bands. I do exactly the thing that you are mentioning a couple of times now, like the faces, that you were saying. You were saying you saw them. This is not your thing, and so on. So I'm gonna show you some. But my question is, so I'm gonna show you, but the question is, like, it's all art, right? And I also made this, just a few for my hobby, but then the same thing happens. People would like to buy it, and the very same thing. I don't want to sell it really, but eventually I'm making it. I think, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but how do you put a price on it? How the hell do you put a price on a piece of art?
I'll give you the answer. You want the true answer?
Let me just show you so that you know that
Fair enough.
I'm talking about. Please don't. I was in Cuba and I got inspired, so don't take offense. I saw that Americans don't like this guy, some of them, but this is what I make.
Amazing, absolutely amazing.
That's all made of the ones that I smoked. It was all mine.
Amazing, beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Thanks.
I could never do that. Now, to answer your question, we live here in the United States in a capitalistic society.
Yeah.
So the answer to your question is, I get what the market can bear for art.
Yeah. But how do you how do you say it? Where do you start?
I tested it out. So I'll give you an example. I made a pair of shoes for somebody and I gave them a price. I just threw a price out there. They said yes. The next time somebody asked me, I increased the price. And over time, I see what the market will bear. I also think about how much time this is taking me. And, without going into details, I can get variety of prices for art. How can I tell you if your picture is worth
exactly. How?
$500 or $500,000? It's what your audience wants. When I was asked to give a price for some artwork for people, I think about, what do I think they can afford? Honestly, I'm not. If I get what I think I can try and get, and there are people that will pay X dollars for this, and there are people that'll pay 10 times what somebody else will have paid. It all depends on the art and what it's a subjective question, Dejan. There is no proper, in my opinion, there is no proper answer. There is no answer.
Okay, let me show you just another one. That's another one I made.
Yeah, see, now I could never, ever do Schwartz. I could never, I would not be able to do that. I don't have the ability to, unbelievable. I could never do that. And I'm in awe of people like you.
Thanks. I'm working on a new one. Let me see if you will see what I'm working on. What do you think this one is?
It's the Mona Lisa. You don't have to ask me if I think. I could never, ever, I could never, ever do that. See?
You're good. You can tell.
Of course I could tell.
So, but this is one aspect. But since you're a litigator, a lawyer person, I would also ask, I'm not selling those, right? I have not sold any. These are all mine. But people are asking me, and then I'm thinking, do you have to have some sort of, agreement with the people?
It's a very complicated answer, which I'm not going to get into in detail. But what I can tell you, if this answers your question, over the last 3 years, I have become more well-known with my artwork. And from every major cigar brand that you and I know and smoke, they're coming to me and sending me their bands. Does that answer your question?
So they love it, right? Because
And I do have, just so as a lawyer, without going to proprietary answers, I do have licensing agreements with companies, and there's some technical answers, but it's the opposite. Everybody that I come in touch with is like, I want my cigar bands to be part of your art. So to me, it's the opposite.
Yeah, I guess. I'm gonna make sure before I sell anything. I'm not selling anything. I'm making it for myself, like you did, But people ask exactly like this. I borrow it to them. I lend it to them so that they can hang it on the wall or in a lounge, But
absolutely.
But I'm not selling it because I want to have my own lounge like you have, only with my art on it.
That's beautiful. Just amazing. Really, it's beautiful artwork.
Because I'm not gonna get rich out of it, and I'm also not an artist. I'm an IT guy, And
no, you're an artist. You're an artist, and you don't realize it. You are.
No, well, I'm not. Like you said, your parents, they were not officially artists, so I'm not. See. Thank you.
Thank you. It's beautiful.
An artist at heart. Robert, one thing that struck my interest. You're, if I may say so, a very sensitive person with an extremely delicate and fine-tuned sensorium. When you see a cigar ring, what does it tell you about the person behind?
And I'm not just saying this, you ask incredible questions. Depending on your cigar band, I look not only at the artwork, but I collect watches as a hobby. And there's something in the watch industry called complications. If it's a chronograph, what are the complications? So when I look at a cigar band, I look at the complications of the cigar band. Take a well-known brand. I will look at the quality of the paper. I will look at the texture. I will look at the color contrasts. I will look at the foils. So I look at the complexity of that piece of art and I decompose it. We've seen these stories, you watch the cooking shows, they decompose the meal. I'm doing nothing but, is it decomposed? Not decomposed. I forget what the phrase is, but I am decomposing the band.
Like deconstructing even.
Deconstructing, yeah. Thank you. I'm deconstructing the band. And so I look to, I belong to a cigar, not belong, but I have a locker here on Long Island, Matador Cigars. I have my own cigar band. I have my own cigar. Selfishly, I happen to have one handy. And they are supposed to land today after 6 months. That's what the tracking says. 5,500 of them. The name of my cigar, if you could see, it's called Kinship. Kinship. And you see that there are 3 people of Victorian era, but you can see the complexity if you were to touch it. It's foils, it's art, it sends a message, it's friendship, because the guys who I'm in partnership with, we all met at Matador Cigars, and we are brothers. I don't go to the lounge to smoke the cigars per se. I go to the lounge to be with my family. And the cigars are just the glue that keeps us together. So I look at the complexity of the bands, and I'm always looking to see what's different. And does this band have a little circle, and I can use just the teeny little circle and get 100 of them, because my artwork doesn't have this little teeny little circle. It is literally to that minute of a detail. I could take a J.C. Newman band. Let's just say it's Julius Caesar, right? A diamond crown. I can take that one band, and I guarantee you I can get 30 to 40 different aspects of that band for my artwork. So that's what I look for. What is there different? Are there flat bands that are just, sure they are. So I'm looking for, and even some of those flat bands are different, but I'm looking for the complexity, and I'm looking for the design. It says something about the manufacturer, like the cover of a book. When we had books, when you'd go into the bookstore, what attracted you? You'd look at the cover of the books. And if you saw a cool cover, you're going to open it up and read more about it. There's no difference between that and marketing for your cigar band. Although maybe I'm not right. Take a look at Davidoff. So, but you know what I'm saying? It's the cover of a book. It's the message about your cigar. It's the first thing that you're going to look at on the shelf if you don't know the cigar. And that's how I look at my artwork. What's different out there?
And I always find that inspiring and humbling and beautiful, especially when hosting the show and we have people from all walks of life, all sorts of different companies, whether that is manufacturers, tobacco growers, brand owners, satellites to the industry. But it is always that moment when, during the conversation, and ideally whilst enjoying one of those people's cigars, it clicks. Or the other way around, when I enjoy cigars from a manufacturer who I haven't had the privilege of meeting yet, but the experience gives me an idea of who they are at the very core. And then we sit down and we have a conversation, and it all makes sense.
I can't tell you,
fascinating.
Reinhard, I can't tell you. A lawyer here from New York, especially when I started within the cigar industry, I was like a kid in a candy store when I sat in Florida with Fred in his office at Oliva, or I sat with Carlito in his office, his beautiful office in DR, that I'm sitting here with these icons. And, you know, going to dinner during PCA, when Hochi Blanco invites me with his crew and says, you're joining us on our bus and coming to us for dinner. I am so humbled. Like, I can't tell you, you know, it always reminds me of the Sally Field, who, if people are American, when she accepted the Academy Award and she says, I'm worthy. You know, that you think you really love me. It's amazing. That's why I do my artwork, not for the money, but for the knowing that people truly love it. And like I keep on saying, that's, you know, more than any dollar amount ever.
Amen to that. Macy has another one for you.
Ah, shit. Oh, sorry. I think that maybe came through.
Always making it dramatic.
Yeah, something like that. You know, the juries apparently like it. Sorry, I was just in New York about a week and a half ago in Brooklyn because, you know, I'm a hipster in Mississippi. No, not in Williamsburg. And I dropped into Matador Cigars next to Peter Luger. And I just want to
Yeah.
say, I forget the guy running it. There's one of the nicest guys I've ever dealt with in a shop. He let me in the your happy place. I don't know if you go to that location, the one in Brooklyn.
Oh, of course I do. Of course.
I bought actually the El Popo there. So you're talking earlier. I meant to comment on that, and then you triggered me again. So Matador Cigar is awesome, and they're Davidoff made by my father. That's a really good exclusive they had. I enjoyed those, and you got me going. You're talking about watches and books. Those are my other loves. In Brooklyn, I went to one of the best on Driggs Avenue, best rare bookstores I've ever been to. Got a signed Donna Tartt Goldfinch for $40, Mississippi Girl. Anyway, so I could not agree with you more on that. Paper books. Reinhard talks about analog world. I like his terminology on that. Paper. I love that analogy. And quick one. Can you give some from one? By the way, I just won my first Etsy dispute. I was sold a Bulova Space View 1968, didn't work. Lady looked me up online, smeared me. I'm 1-0 in Etsy disputes, baby. Used it to buy a new one. Got some. I got to show you some of these Bulovas I just got. But do you have any watch tips for cigar lovers that maybe are a little under the radar? Just watches with your design eye. I am dying to know some of your favorite watches, and if you got anything Bulova, Timex.
I
Those are my favorite brands. But anyway, thank you so much. Love this show.
I think the complications of the watches is really speaks, whether it's you know, there's so many different manufacturers. Like art, watch collection is subjective. You know, somebody can love Movada, somebody could love Rolex, Petit. You know, I like the cigar bands. I would say I look at the complications of the watches. So and I also look to buy special watches at special times of my life. I have a connection with my dad about watches, so which means a lot to me. A very deep connection about watches that, without getting into details, that someday some of his watches will be mine. And there's many discussions and family. So I'm sort of inbred about watches with my family. So you know, it's subjective about it. I will tell you though, my daughter lives in Williamsburg, so it's a small world.
Robert, because Macy brought up the word analog, and me being an old soul in a young body, I think, especially today, more than ever, analog is the real luxury and the new luxury. When it comes to art, it seems that technology is challenging the status quo of the art world. And I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about how this will evolve and change.
I will give you a perfect example. You know, and like a good lawyer thinking on his feet, for a cheap plug again for my Instagram, I want you, if anybody's listening, and this is going to answer your question, I want you to go onto my Instagram page, ARTDEFUMAR, Arte Fumar. Please follow if you don't. Go take a look at this lighter. Reinhard, I tell you that because I've created AI backgrounds for my art. If you've seen them. Not only have I created, Reinhard, AI backgrounds for marketing purposes, but I'm now selling my art. I sell artwork on canvas of my artwork with AI backgrounds to enhance the piece of art with that physical three-dimensional piece. Okay, I'll give you an example real quick. Here's a piece of art that I did, okay, Groucho Marx. But I could take this, get an AI background, then put it on canvas, and I've sold them because people love not only the original artwork, but my artwork has been transformed with AI to create wall art and framed pieces. So I'm using technology now, especially with my marketing. If you see, a lot of times I won't just post a piece, I'll use artwork with my AI with backgrounds. So it's definitely, I'm trying to keep with technology. You know, I have discussions with my social media manager about how we're going to market stuff online and the stories and the reels. So yeah, it's a big thing. You know, Tony Gomez, you know this, he has his NFT with you know,
The Golden Bull.
with the illusion. And I was so honored again when he gave me one of the sticks. You know, it's one of those cigars that I told you I get from the owners that I kept and I'll never smoke. So absolutely, like anything else, as an artist, I'm using the technology and being creative. I can also sell pieces at a much cheaper rate. I make them exclusive, or I'm only making 25 pieces. They're signed, but I'm using the technology as well. Yeah, definitely.
So embrace it, and the confluence of analog and digital is where the magic
Absolutely.
lies.
Yeah, I can't go into details right now publicly, but at next Intertabac, there's something very, very special that will be announced without getting into details that you'll see. Even for example, like the cigar box that I'm doing for Pro Cigar. Hopefully, we're in the final phases of discussions, but we're trying to have a process where the box will almost look and will be like with the feel of cigar bands.
Beautiful.
So yeah,
Robert, I can't tell you what an immense pleasure it is to share a cigar with you, and a conversation from heart. And I had the very same feeling with you and with today's show that I was trying to describe before. That whenever I looked at your artwork, without knowing you intricately, I had a very strong feeling and a sense of who you are as a person, and about the connection that we're about to share. And I can't thank you enough for that. It
well,
truly means the world to me.
it's an honor to be, you know, speaking with you. And I know that I've seen on the screen, and a number of people have been asking, and I haven't been able to respond because I could see it, you know, in my screen. People asking me about commission pieces. To the extent that people want to DM me or Reinhard, you can give them if people want to reach out and through Reinhard can get my info. DM me on Instagram. I'll give you my contact cell, my information. You could also email me. I believe it's at rglick at artdefumar, or maybe it's artdefumar.com, artdefumar.com. But you can get my information. But the best way is to send me a message directly on Instagram, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you. And I look forward, if you've, and we haven't answered it, and I know I've seen some people, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll be more than happy to connect with you.
That's lovely to hear, and we always love to connect people and bring people together. Thankfully, we have a truly global audience. On Facebook, people were commenting that they're watching from New Zealand. So all the way, we have people from the Middle East, Europe, Africa, the US, South America, and it's always wonderful to connect people from all over.
Just like we've connected with Ash in the beginning of our discussion. Such a small world.
How very, very true. Robert, again, I can only thank you from heart, and thank you so much for allowing me the privilege to share this moment with you. I can't wait to sit down and have a cigar with you, hopefully in February when I'm in the US. But before we go, I have one last question for you. If you were to describe yourself as a cigar ring, what would that look like?
That's a wow. If I had to describe myself as a cigar ring, I think it would have a smile and a heart. I would have to say there'd be some combination of a heart, a big red heart, some type of smile, but things that are subliminal, that are hidden messages. There'd be a lot of hidden messages. I think we all have hidden messages in life, but only I would know them. So I would design something with a heart, something with love, with colors, and with passion.
Beautiful. Robert Glick, thank you so much for joining us at the Light 'em Up Lounge. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reinhard. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. What a beautiful and absolutely mesmerizing show. It's been a privilege and pleasure to host you all. Please join us again next week, same time, same station. And again, a most heartfelt invitation to all of you for our Light 'em Up Cigar Family Christmas on December 20th. Robert, to you as well, please. If you happen to have a few spare minutes, we have Carlito, George Padron, and so many of the icons of the industry taking some of their precious time out of that one specific day before the holidays. It would be an honor to have you as well, and all of you, of course. So please join us again on the 20th, same time, same station. And of course, again, next week. Thanks, everybody.
Happy holidays.
And goodbye. Happy holidays.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Thank you, Robert. Really nice.